Alright friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Salim Masani, your coach for your Google Cloud Digital Leader Certification Bootcamp. First module we covered some essentials about cloud computing. This module we are going to cover some essentials on Google Cloud. Module is going to start with regions, zones, go down into CDN, point of presence and few more things. Let's get started. So what are regions? Regions are simply locations. Locations like Mumbai, Delhi, Paris, Frankfurt, Dallas, North Virginia, Mexico. About 40 such locations as of recording of this video, Google has its presence. These regions are typically made up of zones. So if regions are just locations, what are zones? Zones are actual physical infrastructure. This is where the hardware sits. This is where servers are sitting. This is where the storage is sitting. This is the physical environment. So how do we differentiate between the region and the zone? Region is a collection of zones. So just imagine that you are running mission critical production workload on zone A and it goes down. It could be because of a power outage, internet outage, something like that. That would be devastating, right? It would be really bad. So, in a specific geographic location like Mumbai, I could span my infrastructure or I could run my virtual machines across multiple zones A, B, and C. So, even if one of the zones go down, I don't have an outage. So, a region is nothing but a collection of zones together. To understand this a little more, I will show you in the console. Alright, so I'm inside the Google interface and I'm at an interface from which we create virtual machines. The only thing which I want to point out over here right now is selection of resources in terms of locations. So here I can choose a region, and as I said, there are about 40 regions as of now. So this is US Central One, Iowa. Same way, there are like a lot of different locations: Finland, Belgium, London. I can choose a location, and in that location or that region, to be accurate, I can select a zone where I want to run the VM. A, B, and C. In this case, it is showing me in Europe West 2, that is London. Now, virtual machine or a instance is what Google calls it, is a service where I get this flexibility to choose where I wanted, which region, which zone. Now, there are some services where this will not be there, like IAM, Identity and Access Management. Of course, we'll talk about IAM a little later. Even virtual machine, we'll talk more on compute section. But here, there is no region selection while adding. Here, we decide who gets access to what services. It's just, kind of a global service, you could say. Whereas the unique about cloud storage bucket service, and of course, what is this is something which we'll talk later on in a little depth. Right now, I just want to show this, that this service again will allow me to select a region. Here there is no zone selection because the service, when I say is going to launch in a region, it's going to automatically use different zones to replicate its data, be available. So service itself is designed to be regional. That's the way the service is. That's why the breakdown goes down to minimum region over here, not beyond that. Other than that, you get an option to do an implementation which is multi-region, wherein your data is going to be replicated or kept across different parts in that particular geography, which is going to be now a larger geography because it's a multi-region implementation. Now, multi-region gives us three choices: US, Asia, Europe. And of course, when it comes to cloud storage, we'll talk more about it later on. But this is unique with this particular service. All right, so I just wanted to bring this to your attention that your services can be zonal in nature, can be regional, or can be global in nature as well. Thank you. All right, friends. So we spoke about what are regions and what are zones, but how do I decide, which region I want to use? Now, the context is, I can't just go out and, randomly select one and do my implementation over there. Very first thing to verify is whether compliance allows me to use that region or not. So this is the first thing we want to verify. Law of the land is important. Next thing is latency, right? User experience drives business today, and you want to make sure that you select the location which gives the lowest latency to your customers. The closer your data is, the better the user experience will be. Next thing is service availability. Now, all the cloud providers do roll out services ongoingly. They do upgrades, they have new feature releases. Generally speaking, if there's a new service released, right, it might be released in certain release processes, including initial few regions and then rolling out to other regions with time. If you are solutioning something for your customer, you would like to select certain services which are going to be a part of your architecture. You want to also verify that region which you're selecting has those services available or not before you go ahead with the implementation. Last factor is the cost factor. So if I'm going to pay per GB storage in Mumbai, I'm going to pay per GB storage in Sydney also and in Iowa also. But cost in Iowa might be relatively lesser than Mumbai, or cost of Sydney might be relatively much higher than what I'm going to pay in Mumbai. So if you're doing an implementation which is going to be across different geographic locations, while selecting your regions, you could do the cost factorization and decide which particular region is going to be more economical in terms of implementation. So that also is going to be a factor for implementation. All right, so coming down to CDN, Content Distribution Network. So how does this work, right? And what kind of problem does this solve for us? Now let's understand this with a small example. Let's say that I have a video file, okay, which I want to view, and this video file is lying in Mumbai, and I'm, let's say, for example, sitting in London, or maybe a user is sitting in London and wants to view this video file. Well, generally what would happen is that traffic would travel, right, from one location to the other. I mean, typically from London to, you go to first one ISP and then from the other one and then to the next ISP. And this, how many hops would be there, right? It's something which we don't control. It will just happen. And then it will fetch the file. This is a typical way the internet works. What CDN offers me is I can keep this file at different places across the globe in a way of caching it. Now, when we do caching, there will be a local file available in London also, and the user can fetch it from there. Right? So this reduces latency drastically. This is the whole idea behind the content distribution network, and it's very popular today. Most of the public-facing assets today, which you would see, right, would have a CDN implementation to improve user experience. CDN helps with generally the static content, videos, images, static files, right? They all can be cached. Even dynamic content today is being cached, but it helps majorly with your static content, which is heavy. All right, so next we are going to talk about POP. All right, so we're going to cover now something called POP, point of presence, right? So what are POPs and how they're useful? So very first thing is, POP is something which is not solely with something which Google does or Google has. This has been there, and it is being, the solution is being implemented by all the telecom providers, all the ISPs, everyone, basically has this location in their data center which they use to share traffic with other providers. So let's say one of them could be a data center of Airtel, okay, other one could be of Vodafone, this could be Google, okay, and one of them could be Tata Tele. Now all of them have their own data centers where they are operating, they also maintain a section called POP where they share traffic with each other, right? So, this is how it would look like, and they would share traffic with each other for faster connection. So is Google doing this with all the telecom providers, ISPs everywhere for fast connectivity for customers. Now, just that Google has a lot of POP locations. When we access Gmail, Google search, right, we can feel the difference, and we know that it's really, really fast. This happens because of the number of POPs where they are present and are very high. So any ISP, any telecom provider you use to connect and access Google's environment, be it, here I'm talking about, like Gmail or Google search, right? We see that as a very good experience, very fast, very responsive. That is because of all the POP setups they already have in place, right? Now, the other way of visualizing this in your mind is, let's say, as a user, when you try to connect to any service, let's say you're trying to connect and get a file, okay, in over here in Gmail, you might go to multiple internet connections and eventually land up over here and fetching it. But let's say your internet connection is provided by, for example, Hathway, and in wherever is the Hathway's data center, right? In their POP, if Google is connected over there, then your user experience improves because it's just that a single jump for you, a single hop, and you are inside Google's environment because these are private fibers which are running to connect them. Right? So that's how the POP enhances your user experience. It is common, it is implemented by a lot of providers today, and it's nothing to be specific about Google as such. But yes, but Google has done this very nicely, so you can see very responsive whenever we access Google services. Thank you. Next, what you're going to understand is about Google Cloud projects. So, what are projects? Right? Project is a container which will carry all the resources which we need to implement for any kind of a project implementation. If I need a virtual machine, if I need storage, if I need networking, any kind of service which I want to consume, right, I will be consuming out of a project. I cannot get a resource without a project in place. Let us understand this from console. Alright, so I'm inside my console, and if you look over here on top, you would see, there's a list of projects which are there. You can create a new project from here. Project will come in with a project ID, a project name, and after I create it, it will also get a project number. Now, project ID I cannot be changed. Sorry, project ID cannot be changed once you create it, so it's immutable. Project name can be, but it gives me a choice while creation if I want to create a specific project. If I want to say this is for digital leader, so if nobody has used this name, then I might get it. So it's not available. Okay, I'll put it as Web 25. All right, so this is available. So I can now create one. All right, so this is getting created. Right, so project is getting created for me. Now, any resource which I create is going to be a part of a project, and while working on that, I can select the project and I can create resources in that. Right, so that's now up to me for using it. Now, currently this project doesn't have a billing account, right? So it's saying that you cannot use this because there is no billing account, right, with it. So how do I enable billing? I can click on enable billing either here directly, or I can go to my billing interface. So what billing to account is doing for us is this is the basically place where we attach our credit card information and then we associate it with the project, right? So we can create an account, okay, and we can fill in the payment information over here, and then we can associate multiple projects with the same billing account if you want to. This is a choice, right? So we can add the payment method and we can do that with it, and we can enable the billing. So I'm not going to do this for this right now, but just wanted to show you how the billing works. Now since we are in the billing section, right, let me walk you through the entire billing interface. What are the other options? Alright, so we are in the billing section now. The overview page loads the current cost that we are expecting. Okay. And then we have reports, which can give us reports based on our consumption that we have. We can get a forecast of what we're going to spend, and you can kind of look at the overall cost that you're going to now occur at the end of the month. Now you also have a couple of other options. You have cost table, which is available, and it's another representation of how we are going to be charged in terms of the bills. We get an option of seeing our billing across multiple projects, multiple services, right? So we can actually go granular in terms of how much which service, which project is going to charge us. More interesting to look at is the budgets and alerts over here. Now we can create a budget. What budget does is it helps us typically figure out that when we reach certain cost for the month, right, it will send us a notification for us. Now I can create this and I can say that okay, maybe I have a monthly budget to spend on GCP is maybe 10,000, and when I reach at 50%, it's going to send me a notification. So I'm hoping by mid of the month it's going to send me this notification, and maybe last few days it will send this much, and at the end it should reach this much. Now this is my expectations. In case I am overburning resources, then maybe in the first week I will get a notification of 5,000 threshold has reached, right? So that gives me a heads up to go and figure out where I am burning unnecessary money. This will come to me on my email, which is for admin and admin users. I can also configure this information to go to PubSub. We will talk about PubSub, what it is later, but just keep in mind that you can also do this over here. I'm not going to create this, but I'll just cancel this for now. Just wanted to show you what it is. Now, next important thing is the billing export option. Well, sometimes you want to analyze, right, what you are paying for, and it's very hard to get inside detailed bill and look at each and every item in it and figure it from there. Instead, you can send the entire data to BigQuery, and this happens with your enterprise accounts where you have thousands of resources running. You want to get a better understanding of what you're paying for. You send it to BigQuery. BigQuery is a data warehousing service, and we'll again talk about that as we move forward later on in the storage section. But from there, you can run SQL queries on top of it to understand what you are paying for. Right? So this helps you over there. This is also important from our exam perspective. They can test our knowledge around this. I think that's it. We need to know from billing. Thank you. All right. So next thing which you want to be aware of is the support plans. Now, all my Google accounts or projects are in basic. That is a free support plan. That is only a support for billing. So if in case I've been charged for something which I'm not convinced about, I can always open a ticket for the billing and inform them that okay, I've been charged this much and I need support on that. That's the only support which you get in basic. Now after that, the first paid support starts with a minimum commitment of $29 a month. This is generally useful for development environments, right? If you are not already gone to the cloud, you want to go to the cloud, you want to run your production in the cloud, you're still building your application services solution, it's still work in progress. This is a good place to be with a minimum spending of $29 and then 3% of monthly charge, whichever is higher. Here, your support is for us, right? You will get a support, but the turnaround time for it is going to be about 4 hours. So it's going to, if you raise a request that okay, this is something which is not working, you'll get a response after 4 hours for that. Now, enhanced support. This is for production. This is for where you have about somewhere around below 10k, 10,000 USD, right? Billing every month, so maybe 4-5,000 is something which you're spending. So you're going to pay minimum of $100, and 10% up to 10k is going to be your commitment for the support on this, and you are going to get an SLA of 2 hours in this, right? So support is going to respond to you within 2 hours. Now, for premium support, we have a commitment of 15,000 minimum spending, okay, which you're going to kind of spend on the cloud environment, and it's going to be 10% of it. So basically, we are committing for about 1,500 monthly minimum support cost, and this gives us about 15-minute SLA for support, right? So that's the commitment that we have. Now, again, this is important. Oops, my bad. Not hours. This is minutes. This is in minutes. It's 15 minutes. All right. So just keep this in mind. Premium support is 15 minutes. Next thing, what you want to understand is service level agreements. Now, generally, when two parties work together, right, in terms of getting one gaining a service and paying for it, there has to be an agreement that what is the minimum, availability which you are going to guarantee for me, and that is all driven for the SLA agreements. Now, SLA agreements vary from service to service, so based on which service you're utilizing in GCP, your SLA will change. Details of it is available on this particular URL for it. So, if a service availability is 4 nines and it is not able to deliver that, then you get the credits for it. That is what SLA is all about. So, cloud adoption framework. Now, any enterprise moving to cloud, right, requires a framework how to begin. It starts with the leadership, and that's where lead comes in, right, to have a vision to move to the cloud. Of course, without building a team, and the skills to move will be really difficult. So, learning comes in next, right, in it. Eventually, you want to meet up to customer demands, and scale is going to be critical for that. So that's where scale comes in. And of course, security is the utmost of any implementation, so this can't be missed out. So this is the adaptation framework which Google builds new customers to come in from, right? So this is where new customers are going to start, and they're going to move to the cloud, right? So this is what we call as the adaptation framework for it. Next thing, what you're going to try to understand is how to manage your Google Cloud environment, right? How to work on it. So there are a few things. I think it's better we see this from the console directly. So for now, I've been showing you all the console, okay? And you have the main menu. You have the search bar to search and use it. So primarily, what your services which you are to consume in the cloud, right? You are going to leverage it using the console. You could also use the CLI, and to use the CLI, you need to install the CLI tool for it, and then authenticate the CLI with it. That's one way of doing it. Better way of doing it is using Cloud Shell. Now, what is a Cloud Shell? It's a small virtual machine which is given to you out of the box, free of cost to consume, and allows you to execute your CLI commands directly from here. So you don't need to install the CLI and authenticate yourself and do it from there. So that CLI can be used via Cloud Shell as well. That's why we have the Cloud Shell service. Now, these are the two ways of doing it. Generally, for a new learner, console is the best way to begin with. For faster working, right, once you know things, your shell environment or and along with your CLI is more beneficial, because now you know how to do things and you can very quickly execute from there, right? So that's where it helps you. Now the third thing is your SDK. Now SDK is software development kit. It is generally to leverage with your application code. So if your application wants to, you know, upload files to storage in GCP, so that's where the SDK is going to play. That's one example, but any kind of service which application needs to talk, it's going to talk via the SDK. It makes your life easy, directly implementing, the ready-made SDKs which are there. So that's a bit about how to access your GCP environment. Alright, so now we are going to cover a bit around labels. Now, labels are key value pair information which we can use across all GCP services, right? Any service which you consume, right? You are there having an option to create labels. Now, what is the use of it, right? So, primary use of it is for grouping resources. So, at the end, of the month, if I want to figure out if the owner is team A, right, what was the overall cost of it. So I can use the label to check the cost allocation for team A. Environment like production, staging, development. This could be another use of using the uh, labels, right? So it's for filtering. It is for basically visibility, compliance, management of resources. That's where the metadata information is useful. I'll show you how you do it in the console also. Alright, so here we are in the console. I'm at the storage bucket. I get this label option over here and I can add labels. You can put any kind of label that we need. Make sure that the format in which we use are is same. So if I'm writing env for environment, right, then everywhere I should use the same syntax of it. So all the keys eventually across the whole project, right, have to match for it to work correctly. Right? So here it could be like, for example, development. So I could write development. Right. So depending upon the factors, right, which you all internally organization guides you on, you would be having a set of labels. Most commonly implementations would have at least 10 to 15 labels pertaining to ownership, cost center information, compliance related information, automation related information. All that could be revolving around your labels for it. Next, we are going to see how to get a Google Cloud account for ourselves. So if you're preparing for your certification and you want to just have a look at things, try out, Google offers you a very nice free tier to play around with. And I'll show you how to create that right now. To begin with, log in inside your Gmail account. Once you have logged in, you can simply go to cloud.google.com and you'll be redirected to this interface. And then you can click on console to see the console. Now it will ask you to activate, right, your account, and it will ask you to start free. This is $300 credit. Initially it will allow you to use it for some time, and then will push you to activate your free tier, and then you can put. Now this will ask you to provide your credit card information or debit card information, payment information, mobile number. Everything would be required to set this up. I'm not going to do that. I already have a few accounts in place, but once you move forward from here, you would be setting up things, and you will have to provide some payment information, either credit card or a debit card for your account activation. Right, so you'll have to add either of these to actually use the account. Thank you. So we covered quite a few things in this particular module. We covered some basics around regions, zones. We covered what is CDN, what is POP. We got inside how project looks like, how is the billing dashboard, and what are alerts and reports and stuff like that. We talked about a few other things like SLA. That was it, what you wanted to cover in this particular module. Next module we are going to get inside is going to be the storage section. Before that, let's do some Q&A. Alright, so let's start with the Q&A section. Small disclaimer over here. I've copied them from the internet. They've not been written by me, and answers I'll be giving it best of my capabilities. Right. So let's get started with our first question. An old organization has servers running mission critical workloads on its on-premise around the world. Now, they want to be able to manage these workloads consistently and centrally. And you want to stop managing infrastructure. What should your organization do? Option A, migrate the workloads to a public cloud. Option B, migrate the workload to a central office building. Option C, migrate workloads to multiple local co-location facilities. Option D, migrate the workloads to multiple local private clouds. Now, if you observe the questions, you will see that we are talking about making sure that, we don't want to manage the infrastructure. Now, if you move centrally to office building, you're still managing the infrastructure. So is when you're doing local co-location facilities. These are like rented spaces where you can run your servers. So either of the ways you are managing the infrastructure. Next component of the question, which says centrally. Okay. Now, when you say centrally, I cannot run it across multiple different local private clouds, right? So if you're doing it with multiple local private clouds, then probably you cannot get everything in one place. So you're left with option A to move the workloads to the public cloud. Right? So that's the only valid option that is there. All right. So let's do question number 2. A very good organization is planning its cloud expenditure. What should the organization do to control the cost? Option A, consider cloud resources cost as a capital expenditure in annual planning. Option B, use cloud resources, they have no cloud infrastructure cost. C, review cloud resources cost frequently because cost depends on usage. Option D, access cloud resources cost only when SLO is not met by their cloud provider. Let's evaluate it. So option A, consider cloud resources as a capital expenditure. Well, capital expenditure is an upfront cost which you do any kind of infrastructure, like buying a physical server, buying a laptop is all a capital expense. Buying a car is a capital expense. Using cloud is not a capital expense because it's a recurring expense. You keep paying for resources as and when they are running. So it's doesn't fall under the capital expenditure category. Option B, they have no cloud infrastructure cost, right? Cloud resources do cost, they are not free. So, but obviously option B is also wrong. Option D, if you observe, right, it says that access resource cost only when SLO is not met. Now, if the availability goes down, right, so availability factor goes down, if the SLA breaks and SLO is mapped to SLO, that is the objective and the agreement. So, if the outage is beyond what was committed in the SLA and SLO has been breached, you get the credits for it. Of course, you want to review that, what kind of credits you can get in case there was a service outage. But for an ongoing review, with respect to this question, your right answer would be review cloud resources cost frequently because cost depends upon usage. It's a pay-as-you-go model. The more resources you consume, the more you pay for it. So tracking it via budgets and alerts is critical. It's fundamentally important for implementing cloud, right? So your right answer is option C in this. All right, so the next question. Organization wants to be sure that its expenditure on cloud services are in line with the budget. Which two Google Cloud cost management features help your organization gain greater visibility into the cloud resources cost? Choose two. So first one is billing dashboard, A, B, resource labels, C. Sustained use discounts, D. Financial governance policy, E. Payment profile. Now, let's start from bottom and this time. E. Payment profile is a place where you put in your credit card information or your debit card information for making the payments, and that does not give you any visibility into any anything with respect to expenditures. Financial governance profile is basically your governance requirements, right? So you understand what kind of services and how they are compliant and which one to consume from them. So that's completely different. Sustained use discounts. This is a type of discount available on compute usage. We'll talk about discounts on compute in the compute section. But this is nothing to do with your budget or cost resources review or visibility inside your cost, you could say. So A and B are your right answers. You have a billing dashboard and you have resource labels which will help you. Resource labels will help you bifurcate, what you're going to pay for, who is, basically if you are using the same environment for production, development, staging, so, same project for it, then labels will help you bifurcate. If you're putting labels like, owner is particularly, team A and then how much team A costed at the end of it. So that again gives you visibility. So that's where resource labels are going to play a role. Alright, so let's move to the next one. Our company needs to segment Google Cloud resources used by each team from the others. The team efforts are changing frequently and you need to reduce operational risk and maintain cost visibility. Which approach does Google recommend? Your options: A. One project per team, B. One organization per team, C. One project that contains all of the each team resources, D. One top level folder per team. Now I understand that we have still not covered organization and folders, so these two options B and D right now may not strike you, what are these, but it's okay, just deal with me right now and we will cover them in the security section. But to explain this in short over here, right, when you have like multiple projects, right, you group them using an organization together and then you can arrange them in folders for better visibility and management. Now, in this case, our right answer is A, and there are two reasons around it. One, it says that you want to maintain the cost visibility. So, project wise billing could happen and you could see, how much that project has costed you. Then the next point, right, which indirectly, talks about a single project is per team is the reduce operational risk, right? So basically, what I interpret from it is that you don't want a situation where somebody working on with team A, uh, terminates or powers off a resource of team B, and that also with mistake. So that bifurcation will help them not see, not access, resources of each other if they are in separate projects. Right? So that's what it is offering us. All right. So let's move on to the next question. Your organization is releasing its first publicly available application in Google Cloud. The application is critical to your business and customers and requires 2 hours SLA. How should your organization set up support to minimize cost? So this question is very straightforward. You have 4 support plans: basic, which is free, okay, and their only billing support is there, so no critical or production support they're going to get over there. Standard has 4 hours support turnaround time. Enhanced has 2 hours and premium has 15 minutes. So expenditure wise, if you look at it, we need enhanced because the SLA is of 2 hours. Right? So it's a very straightforward and a simple question. All right, so Let's move on to the next question. Our new project runs distributed application in compute engine virtual machines. Our team needs redundancy, but also needs extremely fast communication, less than 10 milliseconds between the parts of application in different virtual machines. Where should your organization locate these virtual machines? In a single zone within a region, in different zones within a region, in multiple regions using one zone per region, multiple regions using multiple zones per region. Now, sub 10 millisecond latency is offered inside the region across different zones. We discussed about this. So you don't want to use a single zone because question also is talking about redundancy over here. So since redundancy is a factor you want to look at, so you want to withstand a single zone failure, that's why you want to use different zones, right, for your implementation, but you'll be using a single region for this. Right? So that's your right answer, that's your B. All right, so the next question. Our organization is developing and deploying an application on Google Cloud. Tracking your Google Cloud spending needs to stay as simple as possible. What should you do to ensure workloads in development environment are fully isolated from production workloads? Option A, apply a unique tag to development resources. Option B, associate the development resource with your own network. Option C, associate the development with their own billing account. Option D, put development resources in their own project. I hope by now you should be able to answer the right one in this case. I'm assuming you might have guessed it. Yes, your answer is D, put the development resources in their own projects. Well, why the others are wrong? Your tag of development, right, will not help in any kind of resource isolation or bifurcation. It's just a label is all about, management. It's all about creating that visibility in the billing to understand, who owns it, what kind of environment it is. It's not going to do any kind of isolation for us. Networking is helpful at times for isolation, but it only isolates a VM. Besides that, others may be able to still, see the VMs over there. So that's another thing. Associate development resources with their own billing account. Your billing account is attached to your project, so you cannot just decide that okay, these resources are going to go to a different billing account. The whole project is attached to a billing account. Rather, one billing account can be used across multiple projects. That's how it works. Right? So I hope this was a simple one. All right, so let's move on to the next one. This is my last question for this module. You are migrating workloads to the cloud. The goal of migration is to serve customers worldwide as quickly as possible. According to local regulations, certain data is required to be stored in a specific geographic area and it can be served worldwide. You need to design architecture and deployment for your workloads. What should you do? Option A, select a public cloud provider that is only active in the required geographic area. Option B, select a private cloud provider that globally replicates data storage for fast data access. Select a public cloud provider that guarantees data location in the required geographic area. Option D, select a private cloud provider that is only active in the required geographic area. This is relatively simple. Your option B replicates data across the globe, so that's out of question. You don't want to replicate that. It has to be in one geographic location. You're left with A, C, and D, three options. But option C is the only one that guarantees data location. Other two just say that cloud provider is active at a location where you're looking for. That's how, your C wins over the other ones. You need guarantees that your data is going to be there where you are storing. Thank you. Thank you so much everyone for watching module 2. Module 3 is going to get inside the storage section. To get the updates, do subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, and like it if you have enjoyed the videos. Any doubts which you all have, put it in the comments section. I will try to answer them as soon as I can. Thank you so much for watching these videos. You are a great audience. Thank you.